Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. Halloween's a weird holiday. I mean, it's not a legal holiday. You still have to go to work or school, although any teacher that assigns homework on trick-or-treat night is the worst. It was in Europe a religious holiday with deep roots in Christianity and paganism. In the United States, it emerged at the end of the 19th century as a kind of a lighthearted affair. I was a bit surprised when my mother told me she'd never been trick-or-treating when she was a girl in New York back in the 1930s and early 40s. Maybe that was a regional thing? To track down when Halloween became a holiday here in Exeter, we turned to the local newspapers. As early as 1891, there are notices of parties at private homes. Costume dances were hugely popular in Exeter in the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Trick-or-treating was a later development. You see, there were other unofficial activities going on. Halloween, like the 4th of July, was a loud and unruly nighttime event. Local kids let loose with mild vandalism that generally went unpunished. Clotheslines were cut down, fence gates and wagon wheels were often removed, and even the family outhouse might be found in a different location when morning arrived. Most of this activity was more nuisance than harmful, but it did create an atmosphere of hooliganism that wasn't tolerated the rest of the year. In 1943, the newspaper reported that 3 cement benches on Swayze Parkway were rolled into the river. An express truck from the train station was found on the steps of the Robinson Seminary. A mailbox was dragged to Phillips Hall, and several fences on Pine and Front Street were torn down. Something had to be done to rein in all this destruction. Trick-or-treating started the next year, 1944, oddly during World War II. The kids went out on October 30th, the traditional mischief night, rebranded as Beggar's Night. And for a long time, and I mean a long time, until about 2 years ago, kids in this town still went trick-or-treating on October 30th than on Halloween proper, like most other places outside of New Hampshire. And there's still a bit of confusion every year about when trick-or-treating happens in various towns in this state. Smart kids will figure out a way to game the system to hit up a few different towns on different nights. If Halloween falls on a Sunday, there's still a few places that move the date forward or backward to avoid it. In 1948, in an effort to curb the still lingering unruliness, Ben Swazinski Jr., a local photographer, began the tradition of showing free movies on Halloween night at the town hall. Costume contests and talent shows took place at the annual event. The rec department later sponsored a costume parade, and often the local businesses had window decoration events. So Halloween around here can last nearly a week. Trick-or-treating requires the participation of both the children and the residents. Sure, there are those who consider the whole thing a kind of extortion, and candy is frankly not healthy, but there's a lot to be said for the practice. Kids tend to define their neighborhood, their world really, as the area they can reasonably cover on trick-or-treat night on foot. And you do get to meet the neighbors. Sometimes the only way they remember people is as the goofy guy in the pumpkin costume. And there's always that one house that goes all the way on its decorations. This History Minute has been generously sponsored by the Dan Brown Charitable Foundation. You can find the Exeter Historical Society at www.exeterhistory.org.